you know, trauma in the conjunctiva, the cornea, and the sclera. So let's first tackle the conjunctiva. You all know it's that clear, transparent membrane that covers the globe anteriorly. So it's transparent, you don't really see it, but you do have blood vessels running within it and over it. It covers the globe again anteriorly with three parts. You have your palpebral, this lines the lids, no? You have the fornicele, it's the one here thrown into folds. They're actually color-coded here in the figure. And then you have your bulbar. This one is what covers the globe. No, it's over the sclera, which is the white part of the eye. Okay. So when you talk of conjunctiva and abnormalities in the conjunctiva, you may encounter these different signs and symptoms. First, you have symptoms of discomfort, foreign body sensation, itching or burning, and tearing, but these are all very non-specific. Even patients who have normal conjunctiva may feel these symptoms. So it really depends on how you piece all these signs and symptoms together, as well as a good history. You know? So what changes or signs can you see in the conjunctiva? You have changes in the vasculature. So you might have hyperemia, you might have hemorrhage, you might have dilated vessels. You might also see swelling of the conjunctiva, and that is called chemosis. You may have different discolorations, discharges, and growth of masses or tumors. They could be different colors. They could be pigmented, they could be non-pigmented. And they come in different shapes and sizes as well. When you talk of redness or injection of the conjunctiva, this is actually just nice to know for you guys. We describe it in 4 ways. You have conjunctival injection, you have pericorneal injection, ciliary injection, and mixed type. When you talk of conjunctival injection, it's generalized. It's diffuse. You usually see it in the different forms of conjunctivitis. When you say pericorneal, you find the injection nearer to the cornea or the limbus. The limbus is the junction between the cornea and the sclera. So you see the redness is more concentrated just beyond the limbus. You find these in conditions or conjunctival disorders that are in close proximity to the cornea. Now you have your foreign body, sometimes your herpes can also present this way. And then you have your ciliary injection. Okay. Well, when you say ciliary, the redness is located in the area where you expect the ciliary body to be. The ciliary body is a structure that is deeper in the eye. It's underneath the sclera. There's an area here where you expect to find the ciliary body. Now, the redness is again deeper. Para siyang nasa within the sclera. But it's still, again, beyond the cornea, not just adjacent to your limbus. Ciliary injection can be seen in episcleritis and scleritis, disciform keratitis. And when you say keratitis, it's a problem on the cornea. Iritis and sarclitis are more uveitic conditions. And then, of course, if you put them all together, you have your mixed type of injection. There are 2 major reactions that we see in the conjunctiva. So one is your follicular reaction, and the other one is your conjunctival papillary reaction. Okay, so for your follicular, just remember that your follicles are germinal centers. If you see in the photo, they are smooth nodules, and then they are avascular at the apices, and you see the vessels at the bases. Okay. You can usually see this type of reaction in your adenoviral conjunctivitis. So this is your typical sore eyes or conjunctivitis that is common in the summer months. You can also see this type of reaction in herpes simplex virus, in toxicity for medications, in a particular type of infectious conjunctivitis, your chlamydia. So these are the examples that show your characteristic follicular conjunctival reaction. When we talk of your papillary reaction, again, just like your follicular, it's pretty much non-specific. It's more obviously seen in the upper tarsal conjunctiva. So you have to flip the lids, particularly the upper lid, if you want to experience, if you want to see the papillary reaction, the obvious papillary reaction. If you look at it closely, it has a fine mosaic pattern of telangiectasia. And each papillae has a central fibrovascular core. Okay. It's quite difficult really to imagine when you're not in front of the slit lamp and looking at an actual patient. But this may be what you may see. They could be larger than this. And later on, you might encounter in the discussion a characteristic condition that presents to you with papillary reaction. So I'll go into that later. Okay, when you talk of inflammation or infection of the conjunctiva, we generally term it as conjunctivitis. And there are different etiologies for your conjunctivitis. One of the most common is your viral. So it's an external adenoviral infection. For those of you who have experienced getting viral conjunctivitis, ito yung typical community acquired. The onset is quite acute, biglaan. You have watery discharge, parang nagluluha kayo. You are very sensitive to light, even ambient light. What does that mean? The regular brightness is very sensitive for you. You may also have mild foreign body sensation and itching. If you try to palpate, you might have some preauricular lymphadenopathy. When you check the conjunctiva, you pull down the lower lid, you flip the upper lid, you might see a mixed papillary follicular reaction. Okay. For the more severe cases of your viral conjunctivitis, you can get subconjunctival hemorrhage. Chemosis, enough for it to really balloon out. So again, chemosis is swelling of the conjunctiva. And some may form membranes, or what we call pseudomembranes. Highlighted here are the etiologies of your epidemic keratoconjunctivitis. Nice for you to know. You don't have to memorize this. Just know that for your adenovirus, we have the adenovirus 8, 11, and 19 that commonly causes your EKC. Then, of course, you have the pharyngoconjunctival fever. This would include adenovirus 3, 4, and 7. Okay, so paano mo maaalala yan? 8 plus 11 equals 19. 3 plus 4 equals 7. Okay. Pero nice to know lang naman for you guys. Then you have bacterial conjunctivitis. Again, the onset here is acute. The difference here is the discharge. So the discharge is purulent and or mucopurulent. You still have the symptoms of photophobia, foreign body sensation, but because there's a lot of discharge, and sometimes it can dry out, you have matting of your lashes. Medyo malagkit kasi yan compared to the discharge in your viral type of conjunctivitis. The common etiologies to bacterial conjunctivitis are your staph, your strep, your Haemophilus. Very important is your gonorrhea bacteria, your chlamydia, your moraxella, and for contact lens wearers, you're quite prone to Pseudomonas infection also. Let's go to gonorrhea conjunctivitis. So why is it very important? Because this bacteria can penetrate intact cornea. Okay? So pwede niyang tunawin yung cornea niyo. Okay? Starts off typically as conjunctivitis, but if left untreated, it can also affect the cornea. Pwede niyang tunawin yung cornea. It's caused by the Neisseria gonorrhea bacteria, and when you're dealing with infectious conjunctivitis, you always want to do a conjunctival swab. Okay? And then we usually send for gram stain and cultures. What you will see in gonorrhea bacteria are your characteristic intracellular diplococci, that is gram negative. The difference between gram negative and gram positive on a slide, the gram positive will look more purple or blue. Pag gram negative, sila yung reddish in color. So yung gonorrhea conjunctivitis, it's quite obvious when you see it in the patient. In fact, the residents, when they see a patient with gonorrhea conjunctivitis, naglalakad pa lang yan papunta sa kanila sa ER. Alam na nila. Why? Because the discharge really is characteristic. It's sort of like mozzarella cheese. It's very sticky. It's quite profuse. And you really see that yellowish, greenish color. Okay. And in fact, dahil sa dami talaga niya, even if you try to wipe it away, or when you try to clean it off, after 5 minutes, babalik na naman yan. Okay. How do patients get gonorrhea in the eye? So it's direct contact with infected genital secretions or any genital hand ocular transmission. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can interrupt me anytime. So natatalsikan, hindi naghugas ng kamay, fomites, they can be sources of infection for these patients. I don't know if you've heard of some patients na naniniwala pa rin sa mga sinasabi ng elders nila na magpapatak ng ihi sa mata for conjunctivitis. So we do encounter these patients. They start off as your typical conjunctivitis or sore eyes, the viral type. But then, nasabihan daw ng lola or kapitbahay na maganda daw sa conjunctivitis yung magpatak ng urine or yung ihi. Minsan, sinusunod nila, unfortunately, they don't know that they have an STD or gonorrhea. So ang nangyayari, nasa self-inoculate sila. So it's not uncommon to have this history in the patient. So because it's unknown to them that they have gonorrhea, they transfer the bacteria into the eye. It's quite unfortunate, especially if they delay management or treatment, kasi nga ang mangyayari, pwedeng matunaw yung cornea, such as in this photo over here, the lower right photo. This one is an actual patient of mine, a 17-year-old, very young lady. Started off with conjunctivitis, bacterial conjunctivitis. Eventually, after 3 days, natunaw na lahat ng cornea niya. Okay, so this eventually had corneal transplant. Even children or newborns can get infected with gonorrhea bacteria, especially if they are or they pass through an infected birth canal, pag spontaneous vaginal delivery. Okay. So that's very important for you to recognize. Together with your gonorrhea bacteria, you can have a chlamydial infection. It can occur at the same time because it's also sexually transmitted. It doesn't mean that if the patient has chlamydial conjunctivitis that they may have genital symptoms as well. Pwedeng wala, okay? But a lot of them will. So it's usually found in sexually active patients. They may have genitourinary symptoms. But what is important or what is characteristic of chlamydial or inclusion conjunctivitis are the follicles, the large follicles that coalesce, no? And then they form these rugae-like folds, no? Similar to what you see in the stomach perhaps. So these follicles are very large and eventually they're thrown into folds like this in the lower lid. You may also palpate some preauricular lymphadenopathy. Okay. Why do we call it inclusion conjunctivitis? If you see here in the lower right photo, here you have your cell, no? Your epithelial cell. Here you have your inclusion bodies. Okay, that's why we call it your inclusion conjunctivitis. So this is a gram stain of a conjunctival swab. Okay. So for treatment, if you're talking about treatment for different types of conjunctivitis, if it's viral, typically it will resolve on its own. No, we just give lubricants to help with the symptoms, but typically it can resolve without treatment. Okay, we just treat symptomatically. For your bacterial type of conjunctivitis, of course, you have to target these bacteria. For your gonorrhea bacteria, our antibiotic of choice is your ceftriaxone. Okay, it's given intramuscularly or maybe IV in more severe types of infection. We also treat concomitant chlamydia with a dose of azithromycin 1 gram. For other types of bacterial conjunctivitis, we have broad spectrum topical antibiotics. But we don't always give oral. Okay? So it depends on the severity if we need oral. But for chlamydia and for gonorrhea, because these are systemic diseases, no, you can, or we have to treat with antibiotics, with oral antibiotics. When your chlamydia conjunctivitis becomes chronic, you call it a trachoma. So it's chronic, it's recurrent. You also have the follicles. But in the more chronic cases, you see these signs such as your Herbert-Spitz. Here in the limbal area, there's a pigmented depression. Okay. Those are your Herbert-Spitz. And then here you have scarring on the palpebral conjunctiva. It's like a linear scar. Okay. That is called your Arlt's line. So these are very characteristic of chronic chlamydial infection. Okay. So we go to another common type of conjunctivitis, which is your allergic conjunctivitis. It's very common for those with a history of atopy, yung mga may asthma, allergic rhinitis. There is a specific type of allergic conjunctivitis that's very common in young boys, no? Yung mga preteens na boys natin. So it's a reaction to airborne allergens. It's mediated by the IgE antibodies. And because it is allergic, the hallmark is itching. So makating-makate. So signs, you can see redness, you can see chemosis. This is the upper right photo, no? That's chemosis or swelling of the conjunctiva. The discharge for allergic conjunctivitis is typically what we call a stringy type or a ropey type of discharge. And because your allergies are episodic, no, your allergic conjunctivitis can also be episodic, particularly in the months that are dry, like the summer months where you have pollen also in the air and other allergens. This is what I was talking about, the specific type of allergic conjunctivitis that you see in young males. It's seasonal, it's recurring, it could be, it's typically bilateral. And the itching here is really intense. You may have blepharospasm. The patient may be photophobic. They may complain of blurred vision and some mucoid discharge. If you note here in the photo, these are actually giant papillae. Okay, so they're elevated, they're three-dimensional, and they have this certain configuration to them, which we call your cobblestone papillae. Okay, so kung naalala nyo yung cobblestone sa intramuros, no? These are your cobblestone papillae, similar to that appearance. Okay, when you see this, no, it's very typical of vernal keratoconjunctivitis or your VKC. There are other specific signs also for VKC. One is your limbal vernal. Okay, it's here in the limbus, the border of the cornea, and the sclera. And you call these your Horner-Trantas dots, okay, Etherentia. Then, because of constant friction from the cobblestone papillae, the epithelium of the cornea can develop an ulcer. And this ulcer is sterile, okay? These ulcers are called your shield ulcers because sometimes they do look like a shield. Okay, so for the treatment of vernal keratoconjunctivitis, you can give mast cell stabilizers, you can give antihistamines, but because the shield ulcer is sterile, you don't need your antibiotics. Sometimes we give steroids in various forms, but we have to follow up the patient. Now, don't give steroids, topical or oral, to a patient who cannot follow up. Because there are a lot of side effects to the steroids, you have to use it with caution. Okay, giant papillary conjunctivitis can be seen. Now, this is a different type, not like your vernal, where you have cobblestone appearance of the papillae. Ito parang gulo-gulo sila. It's seen commonly in contact lens wearers. Okay. They sometimes react to the contact lens material itself or the debris that accumulates on the contact lens, or maybe chemicals involved in cleaning of the lens. They're also seen in patients who have ocular prosthesis and some patients who have sutures sticking out of surgical sites. So the treatment here, if on contact lens, you have to prescribe contact lens rest, meaning they have to be off the contact lens for about 2 weeks. You can give steroid antibiotic drops, but with caution, you have to be able to follow up these patients. Okay. Subconch hemorrhage, sometimes it's just benign. Most of the time, it's related to trauma, to hypertension, to blood discretions, infections, maybe even a valsalva. Okay? So blood collects between the conjunctiva and the sclera. Masses, we have different colors, different sizes, different shapes as well. Your conjunctival nevus, okay, are usually non-malignant because these are congenital hamartomas. They were present at birth. They typically don't really increase in size that much. So they're more regular in shape. If they come in this appearance where the borders are more irregular, you might want to do a biopsy. Okay, because you want to be sure that it's not malignant. But if it was present since birth and the growth is quite slow, most of the time that's non-malignant. Okay. They rarely undergo malignant transformation. So some you could just observe. Others, if they are unsightly, you may want to excise. But if you want to be sure, you have to send out, you have to request for a biopsy. Conjunctival concretions are debris trapped in the conjunctiva, dust, or trapped in the epithelial, conjunctival epithelium. So when patients have this, they could feel nothing, or if you have them very, very large, okay, they can present as foreign body sensation. What do you do for these cases? You can prescribe lubrication, and you can also pick them off one by one. No, pwede siyang tanggalin one by one using a very, very small needle. Now you just try to pick them off. Okay, that's you call that removal of concretions. No, wala naman scientific method to that. So you just use a very, very fine tip needle and try to remove them one by one. So your pingueculas, okay, you may have seen this before. They are elevated and fleshy conjunctival masses. They are located in the interpalpebral region, so sa gitna. More common, no, on the sclera itself. Okay. They could be yellow or light brown. If it becomes irritated, no, you can have a lot of dilated vessels around it. It's usually associated with dry and windy conditions or repeated trauma, as well as sun exposure. This may be more familiar to you. This is your pterygium or your pugita in Filipino. Okay. It's a triangular shaped lesion. Okay. It's fleshy, it's fibrovascular. Sometimes it starts off just at the border of the cornea, and then it can slowly grow and encroach on the cornea itself. Eventually, it may cover the pupil and cause blurring of vision. Risk factors would be UV exposure, wind and dust exposure. This could be surgical, especially if it reduces your vision significantly. Okay. If it causes irritation, okay, yung lagi siyang namumula, lagi siyang namamaga. Okay. The blurring of vision can be because, of course, the pupil is obscured, or it can induce irregular astigmatism, a refractive error. Sometimes, no, it's also surgical when it's required sa work ng patient na walang disfiguring dun sa mukha or sa face, sa mata. So, pwede siyang operahan. Our gold standard for pterygium is excision with a conjunctival autograft. What does that mean? We harvest conjunctiva from the same patient, from the same eye, in the superior bulbar area. Okay, and then we transplant that to the area that is left bare when you remove the pterygium. Okay. We suture that with non-absorbable sutures. Eventually, the sutures are removed. Okay. Why is that our gold standard or standard of care? Conjunctival autografts decrease the risk for recurrence. Okay. If you leave the pterygium excision area bare, pwede siyang tumubo ulit. Especially in younger patients, the risk of recurrence is high. But it's decreased by doing a conjunctival autograft. All right. Pyogenic granulomas are these masses that you might see after surgery, after incision and drainage of some hordeolums. It's raised, it's fleshy, it may be red, it may be pedunculated or flat. But you may treat this with topical steroid antibiotics with caution, or you may excise. Okay. Suture granulomas are just types of granulomas related to surgeries that have retained sutures. Okay. In the same way as your pyogenic granuloma, they may be treated with steroid antibiotics, but only if the patient can follow up. And you can also excise these. Okay. Okay. Other masses, you have your flictenules. Okay. These are lymphocytic nodules that are first located at the limbus, then eventually can travel across the cornea. They are related to either your staphylococcal antigens or your TB bacilli. Okay. So pag staphylococcal, you have to look at the lids, see whether they are crusty, whether there are any debris there. Okay. That may be signs of staphylococcal infections. For your TB bacilli, okay, you have to ask for workup. Usually they are kids. They have primary tuberculosis. You might have to do an X-ray and a PPD. Although most of the time our PPDs are all positive because we're all exposed. Okay, so you can see it can wander across the cornea, bringing with it vascularization. When this resolves, it can leave a scar. Okay. Other masses, you have your papillomas, your viral papillomas. These are typically excised. Okay, these are typically non-malignant, but can be pre-malignant in older adults. You have your conjunctival intraepithelial neoplasias. No? They're broader. They have corkscrew-like vessels in the periphery. Okay. They do not invade the basement membrane. They're typically epithelial only. Then you have your PAM. This is your primary acquired melanosis. They're pigmented. When you say yung melanin, the lesions are typically pigmented. So for your PAM, it's usually acquired. So wala siya at birth. It usually occurs in middle age. When you see them like this, pero medyo kalat-kalat and very patchy, think of your primary acquired melanosis. Acquired kasi nga hindi siya present at birth. Some may have malignant potential. So in about 20 to 30%, it can develop into a melanoma. Okay, this is a slide just to summarize your conjunctival immune responses. Your type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. You may also encounter this in other specialties, not just in OFTA. Your IgE-mediated conjunctival responses are your anaphylactic, your immediate type of hypersensitivity that you see in allergic rhinitis, hay fever, conjunctivitis, allergic conjunctivitis. Then you have your cytotoxic. An example would be your ocular cicatricial pemphigoid or your OCP. Type 3 is your immune complex antigen antibody complex, which you can see in severe forms of dry eye, particularly your Sjogren's syndrome. Type 4 is your delayed hypersensitivity. Examples would be your flectenulosis, transplant rejection, your corneal transplant rejection, and reaction to chemicals. Tuberculosis is also under this. So this is just a summary slide. You can read up on this in other books also. Let's go to the cornea. Before we go to the cornea, any questions? Okay, kung silent, ibig sabihin wala. Hopefully, naintindihan ang conjunctiva. We now go to the cornea. So the cornea is the clear part of the eye. It's crystal clear. Why does it need to be crystal clear? Of course, we look through it. If it were not crystal clear, you would have something covering the vision. It has unmyelinated nerve endings, and these are sensitive to touch, to temperature, and to chemicals. And again, because it is crystal clear, it is devoid of your vessels. Now, how does it get its nourishment? So it will get the nutrients from diffusion from neurotrophins that are in the aqueous. Okay. Typically, your books will describe 5 layers of the cornea. So you remember that by remembering A, B, C, D, and E. A is your anterior epithelium, B is your Bowman's membrane, and C, your corneal stroma, D is your Descemet's membrane, and E is your endothelium. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E. Okay, the photo on the lower left just shows you, the typical diameter of a cornea is about 11 to 12 millimeters. It's thinner in the center and thicker in the periphery. It's composed of collagen, and Mostly it's type 1 collagen, but you may also see type 5, type 3, and type 4. Okay, so you can see here a cut section of the cornea. The epithelium is a thin layer superiorly, anteriorly. The thickest portion is the corneal stroma. Okay, then you have your Descemet's membrane, and then the innermost is your endothelium. Okay, so epithelium, border of the stroma, and the epithelium is your Bowman's layer. The Descemet's comes after your corneal stroma, and beneath that is your endothelium. Okay, the cornea's main function is optical. No? It transmits light and it also refracts light. So it provides 2/3 of the eye's refractive power, which is about 43 diopters. And the lens will provide the 1/3. Okay, so the full refractive power of the eye is about 60 diopters. Other functions of the cornea, it maintains the structural integrity of the eye. Of course, it protects the other contents of the eye also. When you talk of keratitis, no, this means that the cornea is inflamed. No, it can be because of infections, no, by microorganisms. It could be because of tear deficiency, exposure, immune reaction, trauma, etc. When we talk of keratitis, there are two types, two major types. One is your ulcerative. Okay, when you say ulcerative, it's associated with loss of tissue, tissue necrosis. It can involve one or more or all of the corneal layers. It could be central, it could be peripheral. Then you have your non-ulcerative. Obviously, walang tissue loss, walang damage masyado dun sa, or loss of tissue. When you talk of ulcerative, a very important entity is your microbial keratitis. When you talk of your non-ulcerative, you talk of your dry eye disease. Although there are many types of keratitis, we will focus on microbial keratitis for your ulcerative and your dry eye disease for your non-ulcerative, because there are very many and we don't have enough time to discuss every disease involved or under these two classifications. But these are the two more important and perhaps more common. So ito yung mga maaaring makikita ninyo sa clinics. For your bacterial type of ulcers, you have the typical etiologies of strep, staph, Pseudomonas, Moraxella, Neisseria. Most of them are actually those that also cause your conjunctivitis. You can have fungal types of ulcers or keratitis caused by the different types of your fungal fungi. Yung Aspergillus and Fusarium are quite common. You can also see Candida, especially in immunocompromised patients. Parasites can also cause ulcers, your Acanthamoeba, your Microsporidia, your Toxocara, and of course your viral. VCV, HSV are very common, a very common cause of ulcers. Let's go to your bacterial keratitis. The history is typically acute. It's very painful. It's red eye. Patients will complain of decreased vision. Progression can happen quite rapidly. You have the characteristic mucopurulent discharge. Always ask for a history of trauma or contact lens use. Or maybe even another underlying eye disease. Pwede kasing secondary na lang yung bacterial keratitis. When you see these patients, I'll show you photos later on. They have very, very dense infiltrates. They can have hypopyon. This is a collection of pus inside the anterior chamber. For us ophthalmologists, if we don't have the luxury of a gram stain or a culture, we check the borders because sometimes it gives us an idea as to what the etiology is. So for brush-like borders of the ulcer, we might think it's Pseudomonas. For more distinct borders, we think of staph strep or Moraxella. For advancing borders, meaning parang as the days go by, lumalaki ng lumalaki and nakikita mo na nag-advancing borders, these are typically your strep infections. Here are some photos. I'll give you a little bit of time to look through them. I'll just have a drink. So let's start with the upper left photo. This is your brush borders and Pseudomonas. It can be very small, like this, or quite large. After 3 days, pwedeng lumaki na agad yan. For your lower left photo, this is a typical microbacterium. You see an abscess formation inside. The history here could be previous surgery and sudden stopping of your steroid medications, tapos biglang lumaki yung abscess. Give me a moment. Someone is making noise. Nagpapapansin. Okay, a few seconds. Okay, hindi ko daw siya pinapansin, kaya umiiyak. All right, let's go to, sorry, I don't have my video. I can show you how cute my dog is. He's making so much noise. All right, for the photos on the upper right, you have here a very, very distinct borders that you see in the strep and staph. And on the upper right, the rightmost, this is your example of advancing borders. Initially, nagsimula siya maliit lang, tapos nag-extend at lumaki. This is typical of strep, advancing. Moraxellus could be Moraxella infection, could be distinct or indistinct. So, mahirap actually yung you will just rely on the appearance. Excuse me. One moment. So it's difficult to just rely on the appearance that you see. Sometimes they can look similar. So we do have to request for gram stains and culture. So we take a corneal scraping, we put it on a slide and we put it in culture media and we send to the lab. However, medyo matagal bago bumalik. So most of the time we treat empirically. So we use broad spectrum antibiotics. For fungal keratitis, the history is different. Medyo matagal bago magpakita yung mga opacities. Medyo matagal bago mag-consult yung patient. They've been suffering with a red painful eye for quite a while. Okay. There is usually a history of trauma with organic or vegetable matter, or a history of topical steroid use. So this is one of the consequences of using steroids for a long time. They can present to you in many ways. They're usually gray, gray-white infiltrates with sticky hypopyon, solitary or multiple foci of opacities. Okay, you can have an epithelial plaque, immune ring, scleritis. In severe cases, it can perforate. So just to give you a clearer picture of what they can look like, these are the feathery borders in your fungal ulcers. Okay. Down here, you have your epithelial plaque, and eventually the cornea can get thinned out in certain areas, and eventually it can perforate. So this is already the iris coming out from a rupture or a perforation in the cornea. Okay. You also have here your immune ring. Okay. Is an immune reaction to the infection. Then you have your scleritis here. The sclera, it's not white anymore. It's very, very red. This is your hypopyon inside the anterior chamber. Here you have satellite lesions, the small ones over here. These are your main lesions. Okay. You can have solitary, you can have multiple lesions. Okay. Again, here is your hypopyon. So for the more experienced ophthalmologists, when they see this, they already have the fungal etiology in mind. Again, we have to do microbiological studies, and when you do a Gram stain or a Giemsa stain, you're able to identify hyphal elements. For parasitic keratitis, characteristic or the representative microorganism is your Acanthamoeba. The history here is very, very slow. It's a red eye, but not as red as in your bacteria or your fungal infection. However, the pain is really, really severe. It's out of proportion to the clinical findings, meaning the eye doesn't really look so bad, but the patient is complaining of a very, very painful eye. Vision can be decreased. There may be a history of contact lens use. It's commonly misdiagnosed early as your viral infection. So it can present to you in different ways, such as punctate keratitis. May mga spots lang dun sa cornea. It's very, very subtle. Okay. You can also have pseudodendrites here. Again, they're very subtle. In more severe cases, ring infiltrates and scleritis. Here you have a central dense stromal infiltrate. Okay, basta remember nyo yung history niya, it's really pain out of proportion to the clinical findings. So like we said earlier, we have to do microbiological studies. We have here your calcofluor white stain. It's a very specific stain for your Acanthamoeba. And you can see here your double-walled cysts. Again, this is very characteristic of your Acanthamoeba infections, double-walled cysts. Okay. If you have to do a culture or if you want to request for a culture, there's a special type of culture again for your Acanthamoeba. It's your non-nutrient agar with an E. coli overlay. Okay. Kasi hindi siya tutubo kung walang E. coli. Okay. Viral keratitis, typically it's HSV and VCV that infect the eye, but you can also have Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, but these are the more common ones. Again, a red eye, decreased vision. It may be less painful because they attack the nerves of the eye. So, pag may problema yung nerves, parang nababawasan yung sensation if it's a viral infection. There may be a history of trauma or associated illness or maybe even stress. And majority of the patients have a recurrent ocular disease. Findings are very varied. They could start off as small spots on the cornea. What is very obvious or characteristic is when you see your dendrites. In neurology, you have your axons and dendrites. So yung dendritic appearance can be seen in HSV, where you have terminal bulbs and dichotomous branching. It's different for your varicella. They have pseudodendrites, so walang terminal bulbs, okay, and the branching is very irregular. I'll show you photos later on. They can affect any layer of the cornea, the anterior part of the epithelium. It could be deeper, stromal, endothelial. It can also cause uveitis. So ayan, ito yung pwedeng different appearances of your HSV and VCV. So here you have your dichotomous branching with terminal bulbs. That's your HSV. The more irregular branching is your VCV. For both cases, if they become more severe or you're not allowed to give steroids. Sometimes they are treated or mistreated, mishandled, no, and the steroids are applied, these dendrites can enlarge, no, and become geographic ulcers. See here, you have a dendrite here, and down here you have a geographic ulcer. So pag pinakain mo ng steroid or pag pinataka ng steroid yung lesion, pwede siyang lumaki. Here you have a deeper type of infection. No? It's stromal, it's inner cornea. Here you have nummular, no? Different areas na coin-shaped. And then if you have an endothelial keratitis, no, it causes these folds on the cornea. Okay. In the deeper layers, the decimes already, and corneal haze, no, nag-opacify siya ng konti. If the lesion is no longer active, they can form scars. Okay. So for the treatment of the different types of corneal infectious corneal ulcers, no, depends, of course. If it's bacterial, you choose your antibiotics. If it's viral, you have your topical antivirals. If you're dealing with parasites, you also have antiparasitics. For fungal infections, you have your antifungals. So there are different types of medications. You usually discuss that in your pharmacology, ocular pharmacology. But these are the medications that are available to us. Okay. But remember, when you're dealing with infectious ulcers, always do microbiological studies. We go to dry eye disease. So this is the definition of dry eye. It's a multifactorial disease of the ocular surface. It's characterized by a loss of homeostasis of the tear film. It's accompanied by ocular symptoms in which your tear film instability and hyperosmolarity, as well as ocular surface inflammation, are important. No? So they have an interplay of all these factors. So it's one of the most frequently diagnosed disorders in ophthalmology. However, the exact prevalence is unknown. It's more commonly seen in the elderly, but it's not exclusive to them. Okay? The prevalence increases over age 40. And the range, no, estimate lang naman, 5%, about 40% of the population could be affected by your dry eye. It's a frequent cause of ocular irritation. We don't really cure dry eye, but we treat to improve, no, the symptoms. Okay. It's an important cause of your visual morbidity. It can compromise results of surgery, na particularly mga refractive surgery natin, cataract surgery, corneal surgery, or transplants. The discomfort that people feel, no, with dry eye is quite significant and is even equivalent, no, to unstable angina in some quality of life assessment. So talagang important siya na i-manage in patients because it can really affect daily living. This is a nice to know chart for you guys. Just know maybe what you can take away from this chart, no, is that dry eye has two major types. Yung kulang sa tears or the aqueous deficient, and your evaporative or the quality of tears is not very good. Under that are your more specific etiologies, but this is more for advanced learners in ophthalmology already. Symptoms of dry eye, again, very non-specific. Your irritation, redness, burning or stinging sensation, tearing. Okay, for those who wear contact lenses, they might not be able to tolerate contact lenses when they have dry eye. So parang sandali lang, parang tuyong-tuyo na yung pakiramdam ng mata nila. These patients can also complain of foreign body sensation na parang may buhangin yung pakiramdam. Okay. They blink a lot. They have blurred vision. The blurred vision here is intermittent. So pag bagong rest yung mata nila, parang lumilinaw. Tapos after working on the computer, pwede siyang nag-foreign body sensation. There's some photophobia. Sometimes you may have some discharge also. So actually very non-specific. There are some tests for us that give us the clue or give us signs that we may be dealing with a patient with a dry eye. You have your tear breakup time. We apply fluorescein dye on the eye and we wait for the tear film to break up. No? So when we see the first break in the tears, now that's the black spot over there, okay, we record the number or we record the time in seconds, no, when that first breaks up. Of course, the shorter the time before it breaks up, no, the more severe the dry eye is. Then we see here lissamine green stains. No? So ito po ay devitalized cells. Your lissamine green will stain devitalized cells. Okay. The more staining that you see, the more severe the dry eye. Okay. This is staining of the conjunctiva. This is staining of your cornea. Okay. And then this one is stains the lid margin. So this is our particular sign, which we call the posterior lid margin sign. So the bigger the lid margin staining, the more severe then yung dry eye natin. We have Schirmer's tests. Okay, they usually measure, no, the production of tears and the reflex tearing. So we usually put a strip of paper that has gradations of 5, 10, and 15. Okay? So this is in millimeters. We actually fold, no, this tip and we ask the patient to close their eyes. No? Sometimes okay lang naman kahit naka-open, pero usually closed yung eyes nila. We insert it here in the lateral portion. No? Of course, there's a type of Schirmer's that we put anesthetic. That's basic tear secretion. For your reflex type, you don't want to put any anesthetic. So after 5 minutes, we check, no, kung hanggang saan nababasa ng tears yung papel. Okay? Typically, pag 10 millimeters or more, yan, normal yon. Pero pag ganito, na konti lang, may lissamine green staining lang siya. Pag less than 5, no, obviously that's abnormal already. That's very dry. Okay? 10 is normal. We also can measure tear meniscus height. No? It's that pool of tears that you see, and typically, siguro, mga ano yan, 2 millimeters. Yan. Usually normal. Okay, sorry, may nag-iingay. Artificial tears are go-tos when we want to treat for dry eye. So, kasi pag dry eye, kulang yung tears or abnormal yung tears, so you want to augment the tear film. It's the easiest to give and it's quite effective. It enhances your tear stability by reducing evaporation. It helps to retain moisture on the surface of the eye. And as an effect, no, it reduces discomfort. It improves quality of life. And it also reduces the risk of damage to the surface of the cornea. So it's the most currently, it's the most widely used therapy for dry eye as of the moment. So they're usually hypotonic or isotonic buffered solutions. They can contain electrolytes, surfactants, and different types of viscosity agents. But they do try to mimic the components of the tears. For different, this is a menu of treatment, no, for varying severity, no, of the dry eye. The most simple, the most readily available treatment is your tear substitutes that can come in the form of lubricant, no, eye drops, or gels and ointments. For more severe cases, it could be surgical. We can give anti-inflammatory agents. We can prescribe steroids, contact lenses, etc. But really, the first line are your topical tear substitutes. So other corneal disorders in the non-ulcerative group are disorders in size, large cornea, small cornea, opacities, your leukomas, or scars, thinning of the cornea, degenerations and dystrophies. All of this you can just read in your textbooks. There are too many kasi to discuss one by one. Then we go to the sclera and episclera. Okay, the sclera is a white part of the eye. It's quite firm or hard. It's dense, it's opaque, and it's elastic. Okay, it comprises 90% or 5/6 of the outer coat of the eye. So you have the junction of the cornea and the sclera here, the limbus, and the rest of that going up to the back of the eye until the optic nerve is sclera. It's thicker in males than in females. It's thickest near the optic nerve, behind the eye, and it's thinnest at the insertion of your extraocular muscles. Okay. Layers are nice to know. Your episclera is that structure between the superficial sclera and the tenons. Okay, so conjunctiva, the tenons, and then you have your episclera, and then your episclera, and then your sclera. When you talk of episcleritis, it's inflammation of the episclera. It's self-limiting. Okay, it can resolve within a few days to weeks. There is or you don't have the loss of vision or the tissue damage. When it resolves, usually it really goes back to normal. If you do get any loss of vision, it's quite rare. It's typically recurrent. Most of the time, it's unilateral. When we do a test in the clinic, we apply topical phenylephrine so that we see if the redness will subside or not. If it subsides, that's a positive phenylephrine test. It's usually episcleritis. If the redness doesn't subside, or very minimal lang yung difference before and after, that's a negative phenylephrine test. Okay. When it's negative phenylephrine test, it's mostly or more often scleritis. Okay. Another way to describe that is blanching with phenylephrine. So pag blanching kasi nawawala yung redness, di ba? So if it blanches with phenylephrine, it's mostly episcleritis. If it doesn't blanch with phenylephrine, it is your scleritis. Okay. So 2/3 of episcleritis, 2/3 of those with episcleritis have no systemic associated systemic condition. The 1/3 that may have are usually infectious in etiology or inflammatory or autoimmune. So yung mga rheumatoid arthritis, pwede rin makita nito. A history of atopy and rosacea may also be associated with your episcleritis. There are different types of episcleritis. The more common ones are your simple and your nodular. Okay, simple, it's mild to moderate redness. There's typically no pain or discomfort. Kung meron man, very, very slight lang. The redness could be regional or could be diffuse. For nodular, the difference obviously is there's a nodule or a focal, well-defined area of intense redness. It's usually painless. However, on palpation, may konting discomfort yan. Okay. For scleritis, it's inflammation obviously of the sclera. It's a deeper layer. It occurs more often in the 4th to 6th decades of life. It's more common in females. Now with scleritis, if left untreated, you can have tissue loss or destruction and structural alterations in the globe. It's a recurrent disease and it's usually bilateral. Again, here it does not branch with your topical phenylephrine. The progress is quite slow. No, very obvious here for the patients, no, is the intense redness and pain. So significant dito yung pain. It may worsen at night. No, it's quite severe. It can be referred to other regions of the head or the face. When you palpate the eye or the globe, it's quite tender to touch. And the redness of the sclera is not really just red. No? If you look deeper here beneath the conjunctiva, no, the redness is more violaceous actually. Okay? And if you put phenylephrine here, you may have some decrease in the redness in the superficial layer, pero yung sa loob, hindi yan nagbabago. There are different types and we'll discuss them one by one. So your diffuse anterior scleritis, characterized by a zone of edema and redness. Both your episcleral and deep scleral vessels are dilated or injected. There's extreme pain, especially when palpated. Sometimes, when this resolves, you can have an area of thinning, which gives off a blue color. Parang nakikita mo na yung choroid underneath. For your nodular anterior scleritis, again, there's a nodule. Okay. It's very tender on palpation. You have vascular congestion. This one can resolve and it looks like nothing happened. Okay. Not usually accompanied by thinning. For your necrotizing scleritis, it really looks scary. There is an area of necrotic sclera surrounded by an area of inflammation. You have severe pain here. There is the possibility for it to perforate, okay, especially if not treated promptly and properly. About 40% can have some vision loss. And when it heals, you have this area of thinning. Okay, manipis na manipis, and what you see underneath there is already the choroid. Then you have your sclera malacia perforans. It's a scleritis without inflammation. Hindi siya red, pero may mga patches of thinned out sclera. This can occur in long-standing rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, and then you have that blue-gray appearance of the sclera. You can also have large vessels crossing the area of thinning. Okay. Despite the name perforans, spontaneous perforation is actually rare. But the eye can be very soft. Okay. Then you have your posterior scleritis. This type of scleritis usually involves the posterior sclera first. Sa likod siya nagsisimula. Okay. Symptoms are again pain, tenderness, especially with movement of the eye. Okay. Other signs are usually seen on the retina, on the choroid. You have to do some diagnostic imaging. Your B scan, your ultrasound, or your CT scan. So this is a photo of ultrasound of the eye, and this is your CT scan. In a magnified view on the CT scan, you see here thickening of the posterior part of the sclera shown by the arrow. Here you have the ultrasound. Look at the thickened area here. Okay, and then here you have the posterior shadowing of the optic nerve. Okay. So there is a particular sign that we look for. It's called the T sign. Okay. So this is anterior, this is posterior. So you have here edema in subtenon space, and then you attach that to posterior shadowing of the optic nerve, and here you have your T sign. So yung T nakahiga. Okay. So when treating your episcleritis or your scleritis, typically the mainstay for episcleritis are lubricants. Lubricants, reassurance, sometimes a short course of steroids, but it's very easy to treat. For your posterior scleritis and other forms of scleritis, it's more tedious, more long-term yung treatment natin. Typically, we put them on anti-inflammatory medications. If it is related to an infection, we have to treat also the underlying infection. But the mainstay here would be steroids. And your steroids, again, they can be given orally or topically, but you have to treat with caution. Again, these patients cannot be lost to follow-up. There are a lot of contraindications, or there are a lot of consequences when patients use steroids for a long period of time without follow-up. Pwedeng magkaroon ng secondary fungal infection, pwedeng tumaas masyado yung pressure, pwedeng mag-develop ng early cataracts, among other things. Okay. Now, for trauma, we'll just be showing you some photos. Typically, pag trauma, kung kailangan ng surgery, pasok sa OR. Kung hindi, topical medications lang. Okay. So, for conjunctival trauma, you can have chemical injury, like this one. This is one of the true eye emergencies, such as this also, chemicals. So dahil liquid siya, pwedeng mapumatat sa loob ng mata, it can affect the outer part of the eye as well. Lacerations, like this one, okay, they could be surgical, pwede ring non-surgical pag maliit lang sila. Foreign bodies here, on the conjunctiva, you can pick them off with a pair of forceps or maybe your needle. For your corneal traumas, you can have these foreign bodies. They can be large, they can be small, they can be multiple. Okay. They can cause, or accidents can cause lacerations. Okay. This one we have to repair. For this one, there is iris prolapse. You might have to excise the iris so that we can close the wound with sutures. Of course, you can also have trauma from chemicals. Here you have a wire that has punctured the cornea. When you see this, please do not pull them out. We will pull them out in the OR because they might need suturing as well. Okay. So this one is a fish hook. So just imagine na lang how that happened. Again, do not pull them out of the eye. We will do that in the OR. Okay. For scleral trauma, the same way, at any object, especially if some velocity is involved. Lalo na pag yung mga tumatalsik sa mata, yung mga high velocity grinding, may mga bottles na sumasabog. Those are your high velocity injuries. They can penetrate both the cornea and the sclera. So again, you can have scleral trauma from chemical injuries, from scleral lacerations, scleral foreign bodies. You can also have penetrating or perforating injuries. So let's go through the photos. This one, I think, is also a fishing-related accident. This one, sige nga. Dr. Adriano, are you still there?
Yes po, Doc.
Sige nga. What do you think this is?
Doc, parang nail.
Correct. So this is the head of the nail. And we don't know how much it has punctured the eye. So we have to do x-rays. Okay? Please do not do an MRI. X-ray lang tayo or a CT scan. Okay? This is a different photo, but this is what you might see when we pull this out in the OR. It leaves you this defect here. So you have to close this with sutures. Okay. This one again is another type of laceration. Ito naman may prolapse of the choroid from underneath. So this one, you will also have to excise the choroid and just repair the conjunctiva. Okay. Minsan, meron mga foreign bodies na pumapasok sa loob ng mata na hindi nyo nakikita na ganito, wala na kasi siya dun sa opening, baka pumasok na. So you have to do imaging there. You might have to do a CT scan, an X-ray, or even an ultrasound. Okay, so most of these conditions are surgical, so we have to manage these in the OR. Okay, I think that's my last slide. Thank you very much. I'm welcome to entertain your questions if you have any. Ayaw talaga mag-on ng video ko. I'm sorry. So, akala ko when I log in again, magkaka-video na. Pasensya na po. But if you have any questions, I can entertain them now. Medyo mahaba. Pero may 30 minutes pa naman tayo. Pero hindi naman natin kailangan ubusin yung 30 minutes. None? No questions? Naintindihan nyo lahat? Everything is in the handout and the module that was given to you. There are also meron naman mga references din doon if you want to read further. But for the exam, most of it, or if not all of it, can be found in the PowerPoint and the modules. Okay? Walang tanong? Usually, ito yung time na may mga students na nagko-consult ng mga sarili nilang problems with the eye, with the cornea, with blurring of vision. Wala? I wonder kung meron natutunan. Well, hopefully, you were able to get or to learn something new from this lecture. You might be seeing me again in another lecture. I also lecture for uveitis. But I'm not sure if I'll get the same section. Okay, so if there are no other questions, the rest of the time will be for self-directed learning na lang. If in your studying you have some questions, you can forward them to your monitors, and they can send the question to me. And we'll answer that, and I'll find a way to have the answers reach you. Okay? All right. So if there are no more questions, thank you very much for your attention. Keep safe, everyone. So hopefully makapag face-to-face na, no? Oh, pero wala pa. So we want to keep you safe muna. We have to bear with online learning muna tayo. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. Julia, are you still here? Wala na ba si Doktora? Sige, wala na yata siya. So, thank you again. Keep safe, everyone.
Thank you po, Doc.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc.
Ayan, hi, Julia. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Bye-bye. Thank you.